I would say my story starts almost 3 years ago. I had never really desperately wanted children. I always thought, yeah, it would be nice to have a family, but I was never someone that it was my be all and end all. I had married my husband a few years before it, and we never sort of said from the outset, yes, we're going to have a family. We just kind of left it to chance. And I had sort of I was 38, and I had thought to myself, well, I've never been pregnant up to now. I don't think it's ever going to happen. So I had resigned myself to the fact that I probably wasn't going to be a mum, which sat okay with me at the time. So put it to the back of my mind and kind of tried to focus on my career and change jobs, and just kind of started training for a half marathon, and just it was the furthest thing from my mind when I found out one day that I was actually pregnant, which was an amazing feeling, and total bewilderment that this had eventually happened after, so many years of thinking it never would happen. So me and my husband were absolutely ecstatic. We were very naive, first time, first pregnancy, nothing, no expectations of what it was going to be like. So the pregnancy itself was was textbook. There was nothing at all that raised concerns. Every scan we went to, every midwife appointment was, boringly normal, if you like. There was no sort of warning signs that anything was going to happen. I had put in for my maternity leave at work. I was working my last week up to the point where I was leaving, so I was just under 37 weeks pregnant. And as I said, everything was normal. We had nothing to worry about as far as we were concerned. The nursery at home was all prepared. My hospital bag was ready. I'd even, I think a week or two before it, had dug out all of the new baby clothes we'd bought. I had fastidiously kind of washed them all, and I'd went out and bought special sort of fabric softener and everything, just to make sure that, we were going to take care of our baby from day one the best way we could. So all these little clothes were washed and ironed, put away in drawers, just ready for it to happen. And I think both of us were more focused on, how worrying about when we brought him home. Are we going to cope? What can we expect? We were focused on after having him, not the having him, so to speak. And I even remember the midwife saying to me, "So how do you feel about labour?" And I had said, "Well, I'm actually quite excited. I know it's going to be painful, but I'm going to meet my wee boy." So I couldn't wait. So as I said, I was due to finish up from work that week. So 2 days before my last day, I had went to bed in the evening, not feeling any different from any other day. So went to sleep fine, and then in the early hours of the morning on the Thursday morning, I woke during the night feeling the need to go to the toilet. And as I said, I wasn't in any pain, wasn't feeling any differently, just needed the bathroom. So got up in the dark and out of bed, felt a lot of liquid gushing from me and hitting the floor. And my first thought was it was my waters breaking, so I was really excited. I was thinking, oh, baby's on the way. Woke my husband up out of his sleep, and he was kind of groggy and trying to come to terms with what I was saying. And I made it to the bathroom, the ensuite bathroom, put a light on, and it was then that I realised that actually all the liquids that I had felt was in fact blood, and there was a lot of blood all over my bedroom floor, all over the bed, into the ensuite bathroom, and I had managed to get myself onto the toilet at this point, and the blood was still gushing out. But I didn't feel any discomfort, didn't feel any pain, so very naively I wasn't worried. My husband was panicking. He was trying to speak on the phone to the labour ward, telling them what was happening. And I actually was so calm and collected that I took the phone off him because he was struggling, and I spoke, quite matter-of-factly to the nurse on the other end of the phone, explaining to her, I think my waters have broken, I think baby's due to arrive any minute, sort of thing. He's not due for another 3 weeks, but he's obviously coming early. So the nurse said to me, because I lived close enough to the hospital, it was probably quicker if I was able to just get in the car, drive down, because if I was to wait in an ambulance, it would probably take longer. So I felt okay to do this. By then, the bleeding had stopped. So me and my husband grabbed my hospital bag and drove down to the hospital, which was a 5-minute drive at most. And on the way down to the hospital, this was like 2 a.m, but I was texting my mum and my sister because I was excited, because I thought my wee boy was arriving and I wanted to let them know. So that just shows you how unconcerned I was with what was happening. Not unconcerned, I wasn't worried. I wasn't thinking anything was going wrong. We were taken into a delivery room straight away when we arrived at the hospital. The staff were excellent. They were very calm and collected. They didn't cause any concern. But I know from looking back and reflecting on the experience that, they obviously were concerned, but they just weren't wanting to worry me too much. They strapped me up to the heart rate monitor to try and find the baby's heartbeat. They were getting me to turn from side to side because I now know that the baby's heartbeat was very low at this point. He was still clinging on to life, but it was very low. More and more staff kept coming into the room. There was a few glances exchanged. Something obviously wasn't quite right, but I don't know if some sort of self-protection mechanism had kicked in, and I just didn't want to see this. So quite quickly after being taken in, one of the staff said, "We need to take you for an emergency section. We need to get baby out straight away." And I remember saying, "Well, can my husband come down to the operating room with me?" And they quickly told me, "No, we have to get you down as quickly as possible. There's no time." So I was kind of wheeled off in the bed, and I remember my husband sort of shouting after me, "Don't worry, you're in the best place you can be. Everything's going to be okay." And the last thing I remember beforehand was drifting into unconsciousness after getting the general anaesthetic. So when I eventually came round from that, the first thing I asked when I opened my eyes to my husband, who was sitting beside at my bedside in the recovery room, I asked him, "Where's the baby?" And he began to tell me how, "Oh, really sorry, he didn't make it. There was complications." And my brain just couldn't take in what he was trying to say to me. It was disbelief, it really was, because at no point, I can honestly say at no point prior to waking up from the anaesthetic did I suspect that there was ever an issue. I really did not. So he broke my heart. He had to tell me that, the baby that we'd so longed for hadn't made it. And he was trying to tell me what had happened, a complication called Vasa Praevia, which had went undiagnosed in the womb while I was pregnant, meant that there was blood vessels that weren't in the right place within the womb. And when I'd went into labour, although it was very early stages of labour, those blood vessels had actually ruptured, and all the blood loss in my house had been Ramsay's blood. So by the time they managed to actually deliver him through the section, he had no blood left in his body. And they even tried to take some blood from the cord to try and give some of that to him, but there was none in the cord either. They tried for 30 minutes to resuscitate him, but it was no good. They just couldn't help him. So my husband had to try and tell me all of this, and I was also in excruciating pain. I had lost a lot of blood myself. I was in quite a bad way. I had to be transferred to high dependency so they could make sure I was doing okay. And, I was in quite a lot of pain from the section and from various things they'd had to do, to try and stop the bleeding. So I think I sort of concentrated on the pain because it was tangible. I had arrived at hospital pregnant, expecting my baby to be delivered, and I had went to sleep, woken up, and I had been told that my baby was no longer living and I was no longer pregnant. And I think how quickly everything happened meant that my brain was trying to catch up with it all. It just happened too quick, and something must have shut down in my brain, and I didn't want to accept it or to acknowledge it at that point. So I was concentrating on the pain, and I was asking for pain relief and all this sort of thing. So I was taken to high dependency, and I stayed there for a day. And after a few hours up, when we first arrived up in the high dependency ward, I didn't feel I could see Ramsay straight away, despite being asked. We were asked straight away, would you like to see your baby? And I think out of some kind of denial, I wasn't ready to do it at that point. So it was a few hours later, and my husband had told me how a midwife called Jenny had held Ramsay for those few hours whilst we were kind of getting ourselves in the place where we could see him. She had cradled him, she had cuddled him, she had spoken to him, she had told him how loved he was, which is something I'll never forget. It just means a lot. It just means the world to know that she did that. So eventually we felt we could see him, and he was brought into the high dependency room. He was in a cuddle cot, in the cold cot, and he was brought into the room, and it still felt so surreal because I was trying to accept that this baby, although he wasn't living, he was still a perfect baby, was in this cold cot beside me, and he was my baby. And that was really hard, and obviously I was quite highly medicated, so that didn't help matters. So it was a real struggle at first. He looked just like me. He had my crazy hair, my nose, and a lot of my features. And looking at him, I knew he was my baby because there was no doubt about it. But it was really hard to comprehend at that point. So we had some close family and friends came to visit whilst we were in the hospital. We were eventually moved down to the family room at St John's. And we had some, as I said, close family and friends came in to visit, and we all got to hold Ramsay and cuddle him, and I was able to change him into an outfit that we'd brought for him, and bring one of his teddies in, and things that are absolutely priceless to us now. And at the time we got some beautiful photographs given to us that the medical photographer took, but we also took our own photographs, and at the time we felt like we were just taking loads of pictures of the same thing, and it just felt like, well, is this maybe too many pictures? But now it's just not enough. I just wish I'd taken so many more pictures. because it's all you have at the end of the day to remember him, to actually prove his existence, as his photographs and your own memories won't die, but to be able to kind of prove that you've had a baby. So yeah, we had, I think we had about 5 days in total in the hospital, and all the staff were absolutely fantastic in St John's. One midwife that was in our room a lot, Siobhan, she was fantastic. There was other members of staff that, it was all a bit hazy at the time, so probably don't remember all of the names, but I can honestly say that in such a nightmare experience, that it was, the staff made it almost more bearable or more tolerable, I don't know. They were just very sympathetic, and they were giving us the space we needed. My husband was able to stay in the room overnight as well because of the double bed in the family room. So he spent all that time with me as well, which was fantastic, because we were able to cocoon ourselves away from the world for those few days, which was a godsend, because we were so numb and just not knowing what way to turn, because nobody had prepared us for the fact that we might lose our baby. Quite the opposite, in fact. All the midwife appointments and antenatal classes were all very, very positive and focusing on when baby came home. They weren't focused on, well, sometimes things can go wrong, or, sometimes this might happen or that might happen. So we were completely shell-shocked. We did not know what to do with ourselves. I was really struggling with suddenly not being pregnant anymore, and having nothing, nothing to show for those 9 months of pregnancy. So, as I said, we spent that time in the family room. We were isolated from the outside world, and we were kind of able to kind of gather our thoughts a wee bit, and just the staff were great. They were, Siobhan in particular was very mindful, obviously, of how we were feeling, and she was trying to give us a bit of guidance. She gave us the information about Sans Lothians, and she made sure we knew what was inside. There was contact information. She sort of gently kind of suggested we might want to think about a funeral. She offered that the hospital could help arrange that, but we were adamant that we would do that ourselves. So when we were eventually able to leave the hospital, we felt, I think after the 5 days, although we didn't want to leave Ramsay, we got to the stage where we had to get out of that environment, because it was an unreal environment. It wasn't reality. It was, we knew we had to face the outside world at some point, and there was never going to be a good time to do that. And one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do was walk out of that hospital, not with a car seat with a new baby in it, but with a small box, a small memory box, and a bag about Sans Lothians. It was just heartbreaking. And as you're walking down that corridor to leave the hospital from the maternity ward, you're passing all the happy mums, happy dads coming with their balloons and their teddies for their new babies, and you're having to sort of keep your head down and just focus on the ground, because you're not going to have that excitement. So after we got home, after a few days, my husband sort of looked inside the information from Sans Lothians, and he dug out a contact card for Nicola, and he made a phone call to Nicola and just explained, we'd we'd been given the information from the hospital. We'd lost our baby, and we didn't know where to turn, and we didn't know what to do. And I don't know what Nicola said on the phone, but she quickly arranged to come to the house for a visit. You know, she was there within days, I think. You know, she was there almost straight away. And the first thing she did when she came through the door was give me a cuddle. And I know she didn't even have to say anything, because when I looked in her eyes, I could see that empathy, and I could see that connection, because she knew how I was feeling. I mean, me and my husband were going through this experience together, but we weren't having the same experience, because you can't have the same experience as a mother who has carried a baby for 9 months and who has felt kicks and who has changed her whole lifestyle in preparation for a baby arriving. You know, whilst my husband was very supportive and very caring and very understanding, it wasn't the same as another mother who had been through the same loss. And Nicola she just listened to Ramsay's story, and she told us about her own background and her own loss. And certainly for me, I felt straight away that, you know, it didn't matter how I said I was feeling or, you know, what emotions were going on. I knew I could say anything to Nicola about that, because I knew she would get it. And I think that was really important for me, because when you haven't been through that experience before, you just go through so many thoughts and feelings and emotions, a roller coaster of emotions. You can go through a roller coaster of emotions within the space of 10 minutes. You know, being upset, anger, resentment, bitterness. And sometimes the things you're feeling, you think to yourself, is this normal? You know, am I supposed to feel like this, you know, when I've lost my baby? Because I don't know anybody I can ask. But Nicola was that person, and she very often would say to me, yeah, that's exactly, you know, you're not on your own. That is exactly how most mums feel when they've lost their baby. And to have that reassurance, it just meant so much, because it made sense of how you were feeling, and it normalised it. It made you realise that, yeah, it's okay to feel like this. This is what you're supposed to be going through. And I suppose from that point, Sans Lothians became a really important part in my life. From, you know, seeing Nicola on regular visits, and, you know, she would go out her way just to even arrange for a coffee, or I would get a text from her, how are you doing? And just knowing that somebody was caring about you and somebody was thinking about you, but they were asking from the viewpoint that they knew how you were feeling, so that's why they were asking. Yeah, and just also attending the monthly meetings where other bereaved parents attended, that I found really useful in the beginning. It was good to talk. It was good, even just as you progressed through your grief, you know, certain milestones like returning to work, you know, the whole raft of emotions that brought on, being able to just discuss that with other people who'd already been through that stage of their journey. Well, it was invaluable. You know, you were able to kind of say how you were feeling without fear of being judged, and even getting advice off of people, you know, who'd obviously been through that stage, and they knew, well, actually, they were able to say, so you might want to think about this, or, you know, remember and do this, or take care of yourself. And yeah, and just the amount of support that the charity have given me, even down to free counselling sessions for myself and my husband, and further counselling sessions for me on my own. I just think that everything they provide, it's a charity like no other that I've come across, because everybody actually cares about the people that are having to get involved with this charity. You know, there can't be anything worse than losing your baby, and you know, just to have that understanding and for other people to care about you, it's like a community, because I know the way I've felt since losing my son. I've felt a lot more isolated within general society, because I don't feel I think the same way. I don't feel like I react the same way to things, and certain things that I was maybe okay with before I find really upsetting or irritating. But so I'm now 2 years on from losing Ramsay, and I was reflecting on how I was feeling, you know, a few days ago about it all, and I think in the beginning, although people who'd also had a loss reassured you that yes, although you won't be the same, you will actually, you know, you will get some enjoyment again one day from things, or you will have a bit of hope for the future, or you this very dark cloud of despair won't last forever. You know, you get told that, but you don't actually believe it in the beginning, because you're just feeling so empty and so despairing of your future, because your future has been taken, because you were expecting to be a family, and now that's not going to happen. And 2 years on, some of what I was told in the beginning, you know, is starting to ring true for me. I'm not that sort of despairing soul anymore, I wouldn't say. I'm certainly not the same person I was, and I think it's been quite a hard acceptance for me to realise that you know, no, I'm not going to be the person I was before I got pregnant. So you have to accept that, but you have to also realise that your life going forward doesn't have to be all about sadness and grief. There will be a day that comes along when you maybe laugh at something, or you smile at something, or you find a small bit of enjoyment with something, and it'll catch you unawares, and you'll kind of look at yourself and think, well, where did that come from? How could I be feeling something positive all of a sudden? And those small chinks of positivity will get more. You will start to enjoy things again, and you know, but things won't be the same. You'll still obviously have a piece missing where your baby should be. So yeah, I mean, anybody who was watching this who had just lost their baby and didn't know where to turn, you know, there are options there. There are people out there that completely understand and empathise with what you're going through, and you know, to reach out and to contact someone from the Sans Lothians website, contact Nicola, or to even come along to one of the meetings. You know, you will get so much from that. You will realise that you're not on your own. I mean, nothing you can do is going to fix your situation. That's not what Sans Lothian's all about. It's just about carrying you along your journey and making you making you aware that you don't have to go along that journey on your own. There are many lovely people out there that will help you along that journey and will, listen to you when you're having a bad day, and if you're feeling upset, and you might not realise it, but somewhere along the lines you might yourself be helping someone who's lost their baby just by listening to them or to extending the hand of friendship. There's not very much talked about in society about baby loss. Before it happened to me, I was blissfully unaware that babies died. And when it happens, you just think, how did that happen? How can babies die in this day and age? And the sad truth is that babies do die, and for a whole variety of reasons. And it's much more common than what society want to tell you. And, just think because society don't talk about it, because it's not a tangible loss, because nobody has seen your baby, they've just seen a bump, or if it's an earlier loss, maybe people don't even know that you were expecting. And I think just having something like Sans Loathings to almost provide you with that crutch to try and get you through the worst time in your life, you should definitely get in touch somehow, whatever way is comfortable for you, because, as I said, there's some lovely souls out there that would be only too willing to hold your hand.